Welcome to another episode of Ion Sullivan. I am Mike McGuire, your host, joined today as we are each week by the chairman, Rob Doherty. Rob, happy tax day.
Oh, it is tax day. That's correct.
It is.
Well, so I always file for extensions. Business is business, and it's just the way it is.
Well, I thought for sure that this was going to be the first year that I'd need to file for an extension. But I worked into the early morning hours on Sunday into Monday and got them finished. So we're very happy about that. And
have you ever heard the word tax credit before?
No.
Okay. So
it would be a help.
You should look into it.
We should look into that. So last couple of weeks we talked about the report card for the legislature.
Oh, we did talk about that. I thought I was very generous in my report on the legislature, and Kat, Scott, and again we just went off of their material.
That's all.
We went off their material, and then their actions as a whole, as a group of all 9. But it got worse last week.
Oh, it got worse, and we thought what we would do today is, first of all, we've got to wish our good friend Josh Potosik a speedy recovery.
Oh, hop along?
Yeah.
So he tore his ACL in his right leg. Went back to work, I think Monday was his first day back. I've never had that. I imagine it is, A, painful when it first happens, and B, I imagine that the recovery is not that much fun.
So I happened to meet one of the commissioners yesterday.
Okay.
We can't speak about their name because they don't have permission, so it's okay. And she thought it was an Achilles tendon tear. And that he was home.
10 times worse.
10 times worse. So he may be laid up for a little while.
And Josh is not exactly a wrestler.
He is not. He is not.
Because as you know, wrestlers keep wrestling.
Wrestlers say, tape it up.
Tape it
I
up.
don't care what it is, tape it up.
There was a kid about 5 years ago by the name of Brian Rebuto who wrestled for Cornell.
Okay.
And it went on him in a match. Mm-hmm. He finishes the match and wins that match.
Right.
And then he goes on to the finals, and it was just too much. He didn't have enough push.
Well, just put it in perspective. Yeah. Having had a career as an athletic trainer before law school, mm-hmm. Wrestling, people may think that don't understand the mechanics of it. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, you're not weight bearing on it, except for probably 90% of the time you're driving off of your feet.
Well, if you're winning, yes.
That's right. The other time you are counting how many light bulbs are out in the particular gymnasium, which is also a public service. You're on your back. Yeah. But good wrestlers, they're always on their toes and driving, and that's all pressure on the Achilles tendon.
That kid from Menacing, PJ Duke, he lost one high school match, mm-hmm. none in season. I want you to understand that. And he lost at Iron. I forgot the name of the tournament. It's in Jersey. It was in the finals, mm-hmm. and his ACL went in the match, and he wanted to continue.
Of course,
it was the referee who stopped it,
mm-hmm.
and said to the kid, if you weren't in high school, I will let you go. Yeah, if it was college.
So when I had the wrestlers at Northern Iowa University, mm-hmm. there was no question about it. You're a trainer. You have tape. Tape it. I got another match.
Yeah, I got to go.
It was not even a discussion.
Yeah, I got to go.
You need to tape. I don't care what you do. Tape it up. Do something.
Yeah, we got to figure something out here right now. Yeah.
So they're a unique breed and a tough.
They are that. Yes, they are.
So what we thought we would talk about today, other than wrestling and other than it being tax day, is, folks, whenever you want to develop a piece of property, a house, you want to change the use of a piece of property, or maybe you have a pre-existing use that no longer conforms with the zoning area that your town has.
But because as it changes over time.
It changes over time.
Correct.
And so you have a building built, and we dealt with this with the county. You had our nursing home, and then the town of Liberty did their rezoning after the nursing home was built, and guess what? You're not allowed to have a nursing home there.
Oh, wow.
But we're a pre-existing, non-conforming, and it's a county facility, but even transferring it to someone else, as long as it's pre-existing, non-conforming, we would anticipate that the town of Liberty would not give us a hard time about that.
They did, though.
They did, and they will.
Yeah,
and,
correct.
Anyway. So we know that whenever you're going to do that, you have to go to a body called the planning board.
Correct.
And the planning board, what their overall function is to assess development of real property, to ensure that the development of real property is in keeping with the overall zoning plan of the town.
Correct.
And then the county weighs in on that also under Section 239,
Correct.
where they do a review of the project to see primarily what the effect, if any, that project may have on the town's interest, which are primarily environmental: noise,
Correct.
sound, light, traffic, curb cuts, those kinds of things. So we thought we would take a little time today.
That was very lawyerly of how you got that out there.
Well, it happens.
It's
to
what you
me
do.
from
It's what you
time to
do.
time. It's
I
what
understand.
I do. I thought what we would do today is try to explain the process, because we are coming into spring.
Correct.
We had good 5-6 inches of snow the other day, so we know it's spring in the Catskills.
Yes.
And there'll be people that will be going to planning boards with wanting to build things.
I'm looking to build an addition on my home and my primary home, and that was a question I had. Do I have to go to the plan board? And the answer was no. If you already have a building and you are, in the town of Bethel, it's 10 feet from the line. You have to go you have to go to the building department and get a permit.
As long as you're staying within the zoning code.
Correct.
The setbacks, and folks in our audience that don't understand this, there are, within the code, there will be setbacks. How close can your building come to a property line?
Correct.
I've got a client that we just had to purchase. We overpaid for it, but we had to, because we needed the lot adjacent because we're doing a major expansion of a commercial property, and we needed the setbacks.
Yeah.
So now we bought the other property, combined them, so now we'll have the setback.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
that's all happens at the planning board.
Correct. And so, I live in the town of Bethel, and our plan board is pretty active.
Yep.
So just so you know how the plan board's made up, in our town, I believe there are 7 members, and then there's 2 alternates, and they get put on for a term. I believe it's a 6-year term. I think
Usually sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 6.
Okay.
Different towns are different.
So, and then what happens is, so now a lot of people want the town board to tell the planning board what to do.
Oh no, they're an independent body.
See, and that's where the rub comes in.
Right.
Okay, you want that. In my opinion, you want them to be independent.
Completely.
Okay, because you don't want politics to get involved.
Well, you
in
destroy
decision.
the whole zoning plan if you allow politics to creep into it,
Correct.
particularly during an election year.
Correct. So now this is an election year, and it's an odd year election year, and so we have 2 councilmen running and a supervisor in our town running for spots.
So that's enough people to sway the board.
Correct. And so it's, you better let this project go through or else, right? I mean, that's not what you want in these situations.
Not at all.
They have to be independent of the town board. And I know a lot of times people get angry about that, but and then a lot of people go to the town board, right, to the planning board, and they don't understand what they're arguing. I see this over and over
happens
again.
all the time.
Okay. I will tell you, we have an issue now in the town of Bethel that I went last Monday. And I have to tell you how well-informed the people were. They were extremely well-informed.
Those are the members of the planning board or the members of the public?
The members of the public
Okay.
were extremely well-informed. But the bad thing is, as you know, when you're sitting on a board like that, and you sat on a school board
Sure.
for over a decade, so you understand this
I
stuff.
understand it.
And unless you've been on a board before, where the public gets to talk at you for 3 minutes, it's quite the experience, I have to tell you.
Right.
And everyone has the right to say what they want to say.
Over and over again.
Okay, that's the rub. Okay, so there had to be 30 speakers that night. I left so the meeting started at 7:00. They had 2 pieces. They had 3 pieces on the agenda. They did the first 2. Everyone seemed very reasonable. Blah blah. They went through the process, and then the big one came up. So they're talking about putting storage units on the corner of 17B and Pine Grove Road. Okay.
Accessible off of 17B or off of Pine Grove?
Accessible off of 17B.
All right.
Okay, which is a little bit of a
another
problem.
curb cut.
Yeah, another curb cut. A little bit of a problem. We have many of them in the area already. It's a special use permit, so that's where the rub comes in. Most of the time, I have found the town planning board doesn't want to get the town sued, okay? That's like their number one goal when they go into these things, okay?
Well, if they do their job properly and within the construct of the law, they're not going to get, they may get sued.
They may get sued, but it won't be an issue.
Right.
And so a lot of times you hear people yelling and screaming. They're very passionate about the issues, especially on bigger issues. Like this is a big issue. There had to be 50, 60 people in the room.
Wow.
I went to the...
Now, Pine Grove, for the folks that are not familiar with the town of Bethel, leads into...
It is the main
Smallwood.
Entrance of Smallwood.
Right.
Okay.
Goes through Mongup Valley and into Smallwood.
Correct. So it is the main entrance of Pine Grove Road is into Smallwood. Okay. So in town boards, in the planning boards, they normally have sign-up sheets, right? And then you get to go in there and you jot your name down, and anyone gets to speak in a public hearing, okay?
Yep.
And you encourage everyone to speak, but the monotony of it is rough, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Because what I found, and I'm sure you have found this also, sitting there for many of them in the legislature, is people have their 3 minutes planned out. Okay.
And often at least we experienced it in the legislature, the whole thing was choreographed. They even had plants on the dais that were
hand
fueling
signals.
things. Hand signals.
Hand signals, the whole deal.
A couple of times I saw some hand signals and I took off on the pitch and assumed someone was going to protect me.
So
I got out. Andy said, "Where are you going?" I said, "They didn't run."
I thought that we were running.
I thought we were hitting the run.
Yeah. And he grabbed his ear, swiped the shot. I mean,
That's
I thought we were going.
That's where we're going.
So generally speaking, in those things, and the board members tend to get a little anxious here. Okay, and just one piece of advice to the people who it's your first time at a plan board, or maybe your second or third. Try not to hurl insults at the people making the decision.
It's always a good idea that people making a decision that you don't hurl insults at them.
Because as a person who sat on a board, I never did this, but other people had said flat out to me in private, I'm voting against this because X, Y, and Z. Right.
Right. It becomes personal.
It becomes personal. And once you take the law out of it, all right, and the process is pretty simple. And then people come in, they're pretty passionate, and again, they can say anything they want in those 3 minutes.
Yes, they can.
Okay? And there's usually a timer in those situations. And I would say a good 60, 70% of the people go over by a little bit. And then they wind up talking for a minute about that they only have 30 seconds more to go, but they just used a minute to explain to you that they only have 30 seconds to go. Right? And so now you hear yours. So now start thinking about this. If it's 3 minutes a pop, right? And they're not lined up like cordwood, right? So you have 40 speakers. It's a long night.
It's a long night.
It's a long night. I believe we did 8.5 hours one time in the legislature.
We did
8.5 hours of literally the same speech.
And that's when we would have people coming up and asking for additional time before they opened their mouth.
Yes, yeah, that is true.
Magic Time.
Yeah, Magic Time. Some other people.
Magic
Time
would come up and say, "I need more time." I say, "Well, you haven't started yet.
You haven't started yet. How do you know this?
How do you know that?"
So then what happens is you're there for so long. The members of the board start getting up and they use the lavatory and they do other stuff. And one thing that I've always found is that you don't have a computer while you're up there. I've never seen a board in this county that you have a computer there. Okay.
Well, we did at the legislature.
Well, you did. I did not.
Yeah, I did, and I believe that was a point of contention for someone that I actually was keeping track of what was going on in the meeting.
So here's one of the things about that. So even though I was asked by my fellow legislators not to engage with people. I wanted to know where they were coming from and understand their point.
Sure.
Okay, and I wasn't getting nasty with it. I was just asking a serious question.
Right.
So, as a legislator or a planning board member, you do not have anything except for the packet that you were given.
That's all.
Okay? So if someone brings up a point, a lot of times you see people go to their phone and look up the town law or look up, the how that affects people, And so they're trying. Then I find this all the time. The people who are arguing the point, okay, and you haven't made up your mind yet. You haven't said a word about it yet, as board member.
You hope to come with an open mind.
They start saying, hey, don't be looking at your phone when we're talking.
Right.
And they may be looking up an issue that was raised during the meeting. Right. And I find that odd that they kind of, why are we being antagonists now?
And we both experienced that.
Oh, multiple times.
I recall taking notes, and many people would say, you're not paying attention to the meeting. Okay, well, but I'm being asked to. I got to know what we're trying to do here, so I'm trying to keep notes.
Correct.
Whatever.
Correct.
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
It's very difficult, and when you go to a planning board. I always advise people to research the issue first, understand the town law, because the people on the planning board, they're trying to go by the letter of the law. That is their goal. Okay?
That's a safe harbor. I always tell clients this, that judges and boards will swim in safe waters.
All the time.
Even though the law might allow them to deviate, once they go out there, they're not in safe waters. They're maybe one or more sharks. They may be shark infested. Judges don't want to get overturned by the appellate division or the Court of Appeals, and boards don't want to be overturned by the Supreme Court.
Or get sued.
And so as a result of that, you swim in safe waters. The safest waters are, this is the letter of the law.
Correct. And we're going to follow that. So... And then, I mean, you can see some townships that didn't do that, and now they're embroiled in major lawsuits.
Ooh, yes.
DOJ's weighed in, the Attorney General's weighed in one particular town here. And keep in mind, these are volunteer jobs.
Right.
Okay? School boards are a lot the same way. You go to these boards, and you're saying one thing, but oddly enough, that's not the law.
Right.
Okay.
And you think it is, or you think it should be.
And the other thing is, you have to remember, they have an attorney there, and they usually prep them before, like at the legislature, we'd go into executive session, sometimes before we even started.
Right.
And we'd be saying, this is what the law is. Understand what the law is. Okay.
Usually, the prepared legislators would meet with myself or other attorneys in my office to talk about issues before. Again, individually.
Correct.
Or one or two. It wasn't a quorum issue.
Correct.
But the legislators that were concerned, one in particular, would go over the entire agenda.
Correct.
And say, what are the legal pitfalls here? So that, the way you prepare an athlete for a game, prepare the legislators. And some people interpret that as we're trying to influence the legislators. We're trying to influence them to what the law is. That's all. You make whatever decision you want.
Correct.
But this is the law. And
that's what I always try to explain to people. So I went to that meeting. I was there, 2 hours or so. It gets close to my bedtime. It was way past my bedtime. And so, as you know, I get up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I understand.
So 9 o'clock is pushing the envelope. So we discussed it with some key members afterwards. And, I said, I thought everyone did a great job, except for the one or two that could sway the decision by saying crazy stuff to people.
That's one or two members of the board?
No,
or of the public?
Of the public.
Okay.
And then, calling people out, and, I called him out. No, you didn't call him out. He was looking something up.
So what were the concerns, getting into Bethel? What were the concerns with the storage unit? It's, usually not a drug-infested area, not a not a high crime area. It's a storage unit. People need storage units. What's the problem?
So it's a special permit.
Right.
Right. So do we need the service there? We have 3 of them within 7 miles of of that unit.
Right.
The aesthetics of it.
They're not attractive.
They're not attractive. The person is looking to build 1 unit. And if that goes well, then build another unit. If that goes well, build another unit.
And they have the appearance of an industrial site.
Correct.
And that's kind of the gateway to the town of Bethel. I mean, that's
Well. One thing is it's a gateway to Smallwood, which is
it is the gateway to Smallwood.
which is and please, everyone that goes into Smallwood, use that road. Please use Pine Grove Road. Think that Ballard Road does not even exist. Okay.
Right.
Pine Grove is the way you want to go. It's the fastest way, okay? So, most safest way. I just want you to understand that. No Ballard, all Pine Grove.
Right.
So the issues is aesthetics. The way they're going about it, we want approvals on 6 units. We're going to build 1 at a time. Right. That sounds like someone that's going to sell that. This company hasn't doesn't own a unit 2.5 times. This is 2.5 times the largest unit that they currently
so it's
operate.
A big unit they're looking at.
So it's a big unit. Is that fair for the residents of Smallwood to be the guinea pigs for this company that does not reside in Sullivan County? So there's some issues there. And again, it's a special permit. And
this is not a developer in Sullivan County that's developing other properties.
Correct.
Okay.
And as you know, Sullivan County has a long history of the developers from outside the county that have not exactly lived up to their. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's the Capelli doctrine.
Yeah. So,
with all due respect to our dear friend and person we have great respect for, Mr. Garigliano,
correct,
who he and Mr. Capelli basically grew up together.
Well, they did grow up together.
But the Capelli doctrine is you promise everything, deliver nothing.
He did deliver White Plains, though. I will give him that.
But White Plains, last time I checked, is not in Sullivan County.
It is not in Sullivan County. You are correct.
I mean, he delivered a lot. I mean, New Rock City is magnificent, but
unbelievable.
It's not in New York. It's not Sullivan County.
It is not Sullivan County.
It is neither the Concord nor Grossingers.
It is not, and they will not come back.
They will not. Well, Grossinger certainly will not come back.
Not everyone knows what we know, but yes, it is not coming back.
Paul Grossinger is more likely to come back than that property.
Correct. So, I mean, and so I just find that plan boards or any of these boards, I mean, I think it's important for the public to understand that when you go to this board, you have to read what they're reading. Okay, the resolutions are all, you're able to get all the resolutions. You're able to look up the town law. Most towns or school boards or counties have it all right there. You can look it up. I would try to reach out to a member or two and ask them what their thought process is on it.
Which you can do.
Which you're allowed to do.
And encouraged to do.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to say, they can tell you, I'm not taking phone calls on this issue. That's fine. That's up to them. But, give them a jingle and say, hey, where's your head on this?
If you live in that town or that village, the likelihood is you're going to know at least one member of the planning board.
Yeah.
Or one member of the town board that can introduce you to somebody on the planning board.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously I know everyone in
right.
Right.
I mean, those that are more involved in our communities do know, but these are small communities. It's hard to not have your kids went to school with somebody's child that's on the planning board.
I mean, I have to tell you, when my wife was on the school board for over a decade, I mean, I was the chairman of the legislature, right? And we'd be eating dinner at a local restaurant. No one came to talk to me. No, they came to talk to my wife.
Right.
Because obviously she was doing something for me, and I did absolutely nothing, as you well know.
Right.
I mean, so, but the good news is no one came up and screamed at me.
Well, there is that. I mean, of course, they could have been asking your wife, why are you with this guy?
I'm sure she got asked that question a lot. I'm sure she got that.
Certainly is.
Yeah, so.
All right, so that's how planning boards function. That's how they work.
Boards in general, correct.
Yeah. All right, so we want to go back now. We want to take a look at something that's obviously very important. We've talked about the PepsiCo situation where they have decided to close the plant in Liberty and move elsewhere with their production of the snack foods
Correct.
that Pepsi Frito-Lay, which is owned
Correct.
by Pepsi, has. And that's going to leave a big hole in the middle of Liberty. We'll see what happens with that property as of right now.
The good news is I read the other day that Mark Bias has some project, coming in for that, and
But it's top secret. Can't tell anybody about it.
I can't get into the whole details. It's top secret. How many times have we heard that line?
Well, we heard it for 4 years, 12 times a year.
Correct.
We heard it. We've got lots of things going on. I can't talk about any of them. Okay, Mark, we'll go into executive session. Can't talk about anything in there either.
Okay.
Well, okay, that's fine.
So in the 4 years that we were with them, how many projects came to fruition?
Well, the only one that even got off the mat was the Apple Ice, which he took credit for.
Well,
it had nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it.
And we know that because we were in the middle of that whole negotiation, you primarily. And then there was the project in Bethel, which was an online company or a computer company of some sort. But that's about it.
Correct.
So, but that's the Partnership for Economic Development.
Correct.
And their principal objective is what?
Is to bring businesses here to create jobs.
And to create a workforce.
Correct.
To satisfy those needs.
Correct. And they have been paid 20 years now?
At least 20 years.
For 20 years, Mark has been in charge of it, well over a decade that I know of.
Well, easily, because he was there for a while, and we were there for 4. We're out for 1.5, so
Correct.
it's 5.5.
Correct.
And he was there for a while when we got there.
Correct.
And let's face it, he and others took credit for the casino. We know that happened.
Which is just
from
laughable.
Walter Grigliano's office to a couple of nice restaurants in Manhattan.
As I well know.
Well, as you well know, that's where that deal happened. So, when you left office, the unemployment rate in the county was what?
3.6%.
Okay. And that was slightly lower than the national average, which was about 4 at the time.
Correct.
As I recall.
You're correct.
So 3.6. So in the last 2 years now, as I recall, when the partnership was conceptualized, they got what I'll call seed money from the county and from the IDA.
Correct.
To function. And the idea was that over time, that money would drop off and they would become self-sustaining.
That has not happened to this day.
That hasn't happened.
In fact, the chairman of the current Economic Development Committee for the legislature has given them $100,000 twice.
So in the last 1 or 2 budgets, in the budget for 23 and 24, I know that there was some discussion about dropping them down to about $25,000, which is where they were supposed to be by 2020.
Well, that discussion, the funny thing about that, Alan Sorensen was talking about that.
Right.
That when he was the planner for the county.
Correct.
That was the discussion.
Right.
And they've never gotten there.
And so he was a legislator for 12 years.
Correct.
So that was in his last term. So he'd been a legislator for probably 10 years at the time.
Correct.
And he was a planner not immediately before, because he was in private business.
Correct.
For a year or 2 before, after he left the county. So we're probably talking about 12, 13 years.
Longer than that, 15
maybe
years?
15 years earlier. That was the plan, and Alan Sorensen was part of that plan.
Correct.
Okay. So I recall that there was a discussion, and the legislature agreed to drop them from 125 to 75.
Yeah, that was the plan. So we did drop from 125 to 100.
That was in year 1.
Yeah, and then the IDA picked up the difference.
Right.
Okay. And then the plan was to go down from there, which we met with great resistance from other legislators. Oddly enough, Ira Steingart was the one that complained about it the most, but he's currently the head of the IDA.
Right.
So I just find that odd.
At that time, not current.
No. Currently,
he is the head of the IDA.
Yeah, currently he gets paid $60,000 a year to be the head of the IDA.
And prior to that, he served on the IDA.
Correct.
He might have been president of the IDA, but that was part of his position as a legislator.
Correct.
He changed that also
Correct.
to get some division. So the partnership, because the IDA is not funded, they're self-sufficient.
And they do a very good job.
An amazing job. They do an absolutely amazing job, folks.
Correct.
You need to understand that without the IDA, there is no economic development because you're going to get out-recruited by our neighboring counties.
Correct. So again, we talked about it, a week or two ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. The whole Pennsylvania payroll tax credits. They're basically handing you cash.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
They don't give it to you all at one time. They give it to you over a 5-10 year period. But if they say we're going to give this company $5 million in payroll tax credits, you're basically paying the person who owns that company, $5 million to come to your.
And while we have and we're digressing a little bit, but we have town supervisors that want to grab some of the revenues that are keeping the county solvent, but yet they are unequivocal that no IDA projects in their towns.
Oh, they'll say it flat out.
Yeah.
I mean, so as you know, when I was in office, I thought that some of the rules of the IDA were outdated.
Correct.
And so then I went to the head of the IDA and to Walter Grigliano, the attorney, and I said, I think it's time to look at these rules,
right?
Because some of them just didn't make sense,
right?
And they were outdated, and they were made I think they were made 10 years earlier. And a lot of things have changed.
Sure.
There was airport development on the horizon. There was other things that we wanted to focus on. And as a county, that's how you shape the county you want. Okay.
You constantly have to reevaluate. Where are we now? Where were we then? And
Correct.
That's what you said to Walter. We had a couple of evening meetings with key members of the board of the IDA. Again, you rolled up your sleeves. You didn't just pontificate about it on Thursdays. You worked on it.
No. We had a lot of private, conversations about, again, you don't know all the rules. They know all the rules, right? And they understand, and they have a history of what worked and what hasn't worked. So you're going to them and saying, okay, this is where I want to go. How do we get there, right? And so, I remember, and you may be in conflict with some of the other economic engines in the county. But it's the IDA who draws them here.
That's who draws them here. Without them, so they do a great job, and then there's the partnership, and we're going to talk about them. But your legislature dropped them down, and again, you didn't drop them down. The legislature dropped them down to 75,000 ultimately.
I'm one bet. I'm one vote.
One vote. And then in 2024, the legislature that's currently sat raised them back up. So here's a group that should be on a declining scale, kind of works like welfare.
Correct.
And they are just continuing to live off of the county's money, and instead of it being declining, they cut them back by 25,000, and now they're right back up to 100.
Well,
so who's the moving force that moved that back from 75 to 100?
So Matt McPhillips, who's the District 1 legislator and the chair of the Planning Committee and the Economic Development Committee, he suggested it go back to 100, even though he wasn't allowed to vote on it because his wife works for the partnership.
Correct. And I remember, too, again, parenthetically, that you met extensively with the then president of the partnership, which I think was Randy Resnick.
Yes.
And Resnick did a lot of great things in the county.
Correct.
And you met with him to understand more about how they functioned, how they operated, what they needed, what they could do. And this wasn't like a barstool thing. This was ours.
And what their vision was.
Correct.
I mean, so every organization has a vision of where they want to go and what they're seeing, and then they always don't mesh with where the county wants to go or where the IDA, who is the true engine of it all, where they want to go. The IDA can offer a lot of tax benefits, a lot of loans, and other things that is very advantageous to getting people here. I mean, I know in the partnership they've been talking about job-ready sites for 20 years. We still don't have one.
We don't have anything that's being built, but we got a lot of stuff that's in the queue, and it's going to happen any minute now.
As soon as it does happen, I'm going to tell you about it.
We'll know. So, all right. So we were at 3.6% unemployment in the county in 2020, in January 1, 2024.
Correct.
So a year and a half in, we've added money to the partnership. We've gotten them back up. Another $50,000 for 2 years, $100,000 each year total. And so, I mean, these are the pros. These are the pros. Been doing this a long time. So, have we gotten unemployment down under 2?
So unemployment today,
April 15th, 2025,
is 4.5.
Well, so it's increased by a full point.
By a full point from where it was, but put in perspective.
Well, the workforce probably has grown. We've had people move in.
Well, let me just give you this quick stat before we get into that. In February of 2023, it was 2.6. So you're almost 2 points higher.
Okay.
Unemployment has almost doubled from where it was 2 years ago.
It's now at 4.0?
4.5.
4.5. So it is very close to double.
Correct. So when I left office, there were 38,100 people in our workforce.
All right, so now let's explain. A lot of times people don't understand this. Unemployment statistics are a percentage of the people in the workforce.
Correct.
Well, what does that mean? The people that are holding themselves out as ready, willing, and able to work, but can't find work, that's the percentage. It's 4.5% of the workforce.
Correct.
People that are out of the workforce no longer count. And that's an important statistic because remember, there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics.
Yes.
So the way
ones.
that the federal government often plays with those unemployment statistics, and it happened during COVID,
correct,
was you had people leaving the workforce, and they say, well, unemployment is going down. Well, that's because you have had millions of people leave the workforce. Who leave the workforce? Well, people that just said, I'm not looking for a job anymore. People that are retired, people that, for whatever reason, they've used up all their unemployment benefits and are not applying for work anymore. A person who's decided to resign from their job and stay home to raise the kids, which your wife did and my wife did.
Correct.
There's nothing. We're not saying there's anything wrong with it. But those people are not counted as unemployed because they're not in the workforce.
You're correct.
So the workforce is a critical number that most people don't look at, but it's the most critical number because as the workforce dwindles, if the percentage of people that are unemployed stays the same or increases, it's dramatic because the workforce is strong.
So one of the things that companies look at when they decide to relocate to your county is what are the available workers.
Correct.
Okay? And if you don't have a workforce that is growing, the chances of getting a company to come to you is next to zero.
We ran into that almost every day as we were trying to work with the IDA and the partnership at attracting companies here, and they'd all say the same question. Where's the workers come from? We met many times with the administration over at the Center for Discovery as they were building the hospital.
Correct.
And their big concern was, where's our workforce going to come from? We're building this thing here.
Correct.
But, we need respiratory therapists and nurses aides and CNAs.
And that's where the Promise Scholarship
Correct. That was
came out of.
Part of how it was born.
Was to keep people here and, local residents here and get the skills necessary to go do those jobs.
Right. So where are we now? So the unemployment rate goes from 3.5, now it goes to 4.5. So it's up a full point. If the workforce stays the same, it's up a point. But what happens to the workforce?
Okay, so again, in December 2023, when I left office, it was 38,100 people.
Mm-hmm.
You had 1,500 people unemployed. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Today, as of February 2025, these are the latest stats.
Right.
The workforce has shrunk by 1,500 people.
Wow.
And there's more people unemployed than there were before. So I want you to understand what I just said. The workforce shrunk by 1,500 people, but now there are more people unemployed.
Right.
So on a smaller workforce, you have 100 more people unemployed.
A higher percentage, 1 point is a
Correct.
higher percentage of less people.
Correct.
So the impact on the economy is profound.
So now you have, and keep in mind, Frito-Lay, Pepsi is not in these numbers.
They're not
yet.
in those numbers yet.
All right, we're talking 500 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to start filing very shortly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And those are all people that are in the workforce.
Correct.
The ones that will leave with Frito-Lay, that's going to be some, but much of that workforce doesn't have the ability to.
Correct. They just don't have the money to,
right.
Quite frankly. So now you have a situation where when these numbers come out in a month or two, you're going to have companies looking at our county saying, I saw a steady incline in the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
The number was going way down on unemployed. Okay?
Right. Which means there's people available to hire.
Correct. Now they're going to say, wait a second. The workforce is dwindling and the unemployment rate is higher.
Correct.
And so now we have a problem. Why would I go to that county?
No reason.
Correct.
And it could be worse because, as I've said before, Formaggio they're fueling the trucks because if the town of Fallsburg can't give them some of what they need, what they need
and
is...
it's not want, it is need.
No, they run a factory that produces food product.
Correct.
They need clean water. And the well in the town doesn't create clean water, and that's now leaching into their aquifer of their own well.
Correct.
They can't even use town water, and they need space. And the town several years ago bought a piece of property that they wanted, and the town stood up in priority and took it. Now they need that property for parking, for move trucks. They need to reduce the speed limit in front of their plant because you got big trucks coming in and out of there. And they need workforce housing because they have to bring their workforce here.
And they need a new well.
And they need a new well. And they also need to be on the sewer line because the planning board won't approve the workforce housing without them having sewer. And they're about 40 feet short of being on a sewer line. Without those things, those trucks are being fueled because the president and his staff are out in the Midwest, can't disclose with whom, but they're meeting with a company that could be such a major impact that it could almost increase their demand for production by 35%. And so what happened in Liberty is going to happen in Fallsburg, and that's another 400 employees.
Okay, now keep in mind, these are employees who shop locally,
Sure,
pay rents here, fuel their house, fuel their cars,
Yep.
Just operate in the county, generating sales tax, generating,
buy cars here.
Correct. Do everything, fix up their homes, everything that we want people to do.
And the expansions to the plant are done by people and companies that live here,
Correct.
that work here, that employ even union folks here in the county.
Correct.
Who then spend their money in the county.
Correct.
So it's a serious thing.
Oh, I agree with you. So as far as the workforce goes, the workforce is dwindling. economic development is going to come to a crashing halt very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
if it hasn't already.
Well, it appears it has. There's only one reason why your workforce diminishes, and that's because they don't feel that they're going to get ahead being here.
Sure.
Right. So that's why they don't feel that as a worker, you're saying I can go that county over, and I can live a better life with me and my family.
Correct.
Right. So when that starts happening, you take main streets right here in downtown Liberty. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stores that cater to the workforce there. Yep. They start closing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you have empty storefronts again. And then you have workers who, they maybe only employ 3-4 people, but now they're out of work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then why do I stay here,
mm-hmm.
right? Then you have whole families moving out at a time. I mean, whole families are moving.
No question.
There's brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, and they're like, hey, we can go over here and work,
mm-hmm.
It wasn't that long ago that's how the hotel, had their workers.
And that's what happened when the hotel industry started to literally go south. You had all of these unskilled laborers who had tremendous work ethics, who
mm-hmm.
worked 12, 14 hours a day, serviced the guests at the hotels extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
And as those hotels dropped off, we now, generations later, have the remnants of a workforce that there was no work for.
Correct.
And now we have filled some of that void with places like Pepsi and places like Formaggio and the chicken plant in Fallsburg. And, as they drop off and Pepsi is off, Formaggio is teetering, and, obviously I haven't heard anything at all about the chicken plant. But we're going to replicate what happened in the 80s and 90s when the hotel industry virtually died in this county.
Well, this is what happens when you just show up for half the meetings.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going through you read the stuff the day.
That's a part-time job.
It's a part-time job. But you know what's funny about part-time jobs in this county? You get full-time benefits.
Oh, you do?
So now we have one legislator from District 1 who...
well, not most people don't get full benefits.
No.
If you work a part-time job, you have a lot of people that are working to pay the extra costs.
Correct.
And they go get a second job at the casino or at a restaurant, waitressing or whatever. They're not getting full benefits for those part-time
And there
jobs.
are people who work in the county in certain offices that don't make a lot of money, but they're there for the benefits.
They're there for the insurance.
They're there for the insurance. Now, we have a part-time legislator there who truly invests in the part-time part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't at last week's meeting. Has missed a lot of meetings so far this year. But he made sure he got the insurance, not from his full-time employer, not from his wife's full-time employer, but from the county.
Well, because it's free.
It's free.
And if it's free,
it's for him.
It's for me. That's what he says.
Yeah.
So, all right. So now we've spoken about the partnership. And folks, there was a reason why we wanted to touch on the partnership, because there is something rotten in Denmark, only Denmark in this case is Monticello.
Correct.
And we've spoken about the garbage. We've spoken about the garbage to this point about we have got trash Armageddon coming down the pike in the next 2 to 4 years.
2 to 4 years.
Or less.
Okay, unless something's done. We are now in April. We're in the 4th month of the year, and we're halfway through that, okay?
Right.
Sacramento's permit is up this year.
January 25.
Okay? And you have New York City, who controls the state legislature.
Correct.
Okay? Saying, it's over.
It's over.
It's over.
Correct.
Okay? So unless, and you have a governor going into an election year.
And she needs New York City in order to keep her cushy digs in Albany.
In the worst way, she needs New York City. And they're saying, we think we need to close Seneca Meadows, okay? So now I believe it was, so now it's what, 2025? It was 2021 when I first started talking about garbage.
We first started talking about it right away because you learned about the Wheelabrator situation.
Correct.
And then we started looking at other options. And you said in a meeting, folks, I want to hear about every option. You challenged the folks in Public Works.
Correct.
And the folks in Sustainable Energy, the great Heather Brown, to come up with every option. And what I found comical is we talk about how the opposition is often choreographed.
Oh.
Right after you said, I want to hear about every option, some nitwit gets up and says, well, Mr. Doherty, you should really be listening to different options. He just said that.
I just said that.
But that was what the producer of that show said the next line had to be.
Correct. So
we were looking at lots of different things, and one of them was Covanta, and we've spoken about Covanta here on Ian
correct.
Sullivan.
So we went down, took a trip. We had a deal in place with them that was clearly fumbled. And this legislature is not taking the garbage issue. They took it pretty seriously last week, and I'd like to get into that a little bit. So one of my major concerns about the garbage issue is the environmental impact, on this county and every county between here and Seneca Meadows.
So when we talk about the environment, if Delaware County or Broome County has bad air, we don't have a space shield. That
we do not.
Air is going to waft into Sullivan County.
It's going to.
So currently, people put their trash out by the curb.
Mm-hmm.
I put mine out this morning. The Village of Liberty came by and picked it up.
Oh, good for you.
And that doesn't happen every week, but it happened this week.
All right.
Actually, they're pretty good about picking up the trash. The recyclables, they're hit or miss.
Hit or miss.
Until it gets spread around the neighborhood. But anyway.
I think you're being kind by that because I have the numbers right in front of me.
Yeah. So we put the trash out, and then, I'm assuming, okay, the county is going to responsibly take care of this because we're a very environmentally conscious county. What happens to that trash after it goes in the truck from Liberty and goes to the transfer station in Monticello?
So then it gets it's called the floor.
Yep.
Okay, it literally gets dumped onto the floor.
It's called a tipping floor.
Okay, it then gets scooped up.
And front end loader.
Front end loader, and gets put into a truck, an MBI truck.
Mm-hmm.
And then that truck drives, 5 hours?
5 hours.
5 hours over the road
Mm-hmm.
In I believe it's 27-ton truck, blowing diesel, okay? Goes up to Seneca Meadows.
There's one truck a day.
Oh, no.
More than one truck a day?
During the summertime?
Yeah.
I think it's 100 trucks a day.
100 trucks a day, and that's statewide.
No. That's just us.
That's just Sullivan County.
Yeah, and we are a pimple on that project.
And of course, Orange County's trucks don't drive through here, do they?
Yeah, they do.
Rockland?
Rockland?
New York City, no.
Half their garbage goes there.
All passing up Route 17 between Bloomingburg and Roscoe.
So
that's Sullivan County.
I used to say to people all the time when we would talk about this, I'd say, you can go to any overpass you want, just pick the overpass.
Right.
And I will pay you $100 for every truck, okay? Over 100 trucks that you see in an hour, okay? So you have to get to 100 first, and then after that, I'd pay you. You'd walk out of there with probably a couple of grand. Okay?
Oh, easily.
I mean, you can sit there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and on any overpass you want, okay? And have a little clicker on there, right? A little baseball clicker, balls and strikes. And you can start clicking that thing. You'd be in the hundreds by the time you get there, okay? In the hundreds.
In an hour.
In an hour.
And that's early in the morning.
The goal, so these trucks want to get up past, there's a whole game, as there is a game and everything. So they want to get up past Nichols. New York, that's where the other casino is, up the road. Right after that casino, there's a very large rest area, and you want to get past there before 7 o'clock in the morning, because that's when DOT comes out and they start weighing trucks and checking for broken axles and so forth. And now, keep in mind, while New York State is making a ton of money on invalid inspection stickers and this, that, the other thing, they're still on those trucks roll after that.
Of course.
Okay. And the town of Nichols is making a pretty penny. But at the same time, those trucks are carrying garbage to go to Seneca Meadows, okay, to dump it. Okay. I wish it could be in a hole, but it's not in a hole because now it's as big as the Statue of Liberty.
It's a mountain.
It is literally a mountain of garbage. And as we have said 1,000 times, if I said it once, I said it 1,000 times, carbon is 84 times worse.
Methane.
Methane, I'm sorry. Methane is 84 times worse than carbon.
Well, I'm glad there's no methane in our garbage then.
Oh, that's all it is. That's all it is.
So when, as food products
break down,
decompose,
correct,
they give off methane gas.
Correct.
And that's 84 times more destructive to the ozone layer than carbon is.
Correct.
And then you got lots of carbon because the emissions from those hundreds of trucks is carbon.
Correct. So one of the things I did when I was in office was we wanted to start a composting program.
Correct.
To eliminate our county share of the methane gas.
Correct.
Okay. That was the goal. Okay. It was purely environmental. Okay. Maybe a little financial in there too, because then you're not trucking that up.
You're
there.
not paying.
You're not paying
a third
the
of our garbage.
Correct. So we applied for a license, and even though the DEC encourages you to do so, it took us 3 years to get the license.
3 years to get the license.
Okay.
Right.
We hired a person to put them in charge, and now that person's in charge of the composting. But I'll let you guess what this legislature has done with the composting.
Well, this legislature is very environmentally tuned in. They said when they ran.
Well, if you read their report, if you read their literature, yes, but they've done nothing.
They've done nothing.
They just applied last month for a grant to expand the program, which they haven't gotten off the ground.
Started yet?
Gotten off the ground yet?
We've had the buckets for years.
Okay.
And we haven't gotten the buckets distributed yet.
Not yet.
And now we're going to do a grant to expand a program that we haven't even started yet.
Correct.
All right. So we now, folks, you may think that, boy, here it is Easter, and these Mike and Rob are sending us on a bit of an Easter egg hunt, or maybe we're passing over the key issue. So what is the link that joins our discussion about garbage and the Partnership for Economic Development?
Okay, so this is the problem. So 2 months ago, we had a whole show on garbage, and in that show, I said that this legislature overreached and raised the fees too high.
And again, just to catch people up, because this audience is growing week by week.
Correct.
We're going to remind everyone to please subscribe, because then instead of screaming at your phone or maybe screaming at your car radio when you're driving up the road, you hear something that we say and it could be dangerous. We want you to be able to interact with us in real time, and that will happen when we get to 1,000 subscribers. So we want to catch people up to date. When we were talking about garbage a couple of weeks ago about the price, we said that Seneca Meadows had raised the price by $10 a ton.
So one of the things that we had done when I was in office was MBI didn't have enough trucks for us.
Right. That was a constant problem in the summer. We weren't getting the tipping floor clean.
So we negotiated with Seneca Meadows and MBI.
MBI is the trucker.
Correct.
We contract with them. Actually, Seneca Meadows contracts with them, but then we use them to so does everybody, to transport from our facility to theirs.
Correct.
And a lot of times they wind up waiting in line, so we couldn't get the turnaround. So what did you do as chair?
So we negotiated that they were able to drive up there, and now drivers were issues. They didn't have enough drivers.
Right.
They had plenty of trucks, not enough drivers. Okay.
Right.
So to
plenty of trailers.
Yeah, trailers. So to get 2 rounds in a day, okay, under the New York State DOT laws, they were able to then go up there, drop their trailer, take their truck, pick up another trailer, and come back.
Which they call a hook and go.
Correct. So that cost, there was a fee on that.
So sometimes you would wait 2 hours in line to dump.
Correct.
And then it was impossible to do 2 runs.
You couldn't get 2 runs in. So we negotiated that deal, and so the fee went up by $1. So they upped the fee for the tonnage by $10 a ton, and then they up the hook and go by $1. So it's $11.
And keep in mind that it was your foresight, because when that problem produced itself, it was because we were looking at getting our transfer station closed.
Correct.
Because we couldn't get the tipping floor clean every night, and we had to get this the garbage moved.
Correct. We couldn't move the garbage fast enough.
Right, and so it was your insight as having been involved in the trucking industry that you said, well, why are they waiting online for 2 hours? That's up to Seneca Meadows. It's their trucks. It's not theirs, but their contractor. Yeah. They got to turn them around. They have an obligation to take what we have for them. And it was your leadership that said, you got a trailer, we're dropping it. You moved, you wait online.
Correct. They did not have jockeys there, and that's what they're called, okay?
Correct.
And they're called jockeys. Mm-hmm. So then they hired more people, okay, and had jockeys.
And there was a fee for that.
Correct.
That was not unreasonable.
And we don't think that's unreasonable.
Right.
So you now drop your trailer, you grab another empty trailer, you come back down, and then you're able to go back up in one day, right? So you can get 2 runs in a day, which basically, if you now have double the amount of trailer space, right? Which helped the county greatly.
Right.
So the problem we have now is in the legislature, we had Thompson Sanitation show up. And by the way, Thompson Sanitation is a monster company.
So the total increase was $11, $10 a ton plus $1 on the hook and go.
Correct. So they turn around and said, "Hey, you're killing us," right? So
Thompson Sanitation
Thompson Sanitation saying that we're getting offers from other places,
right,
to dump our garbage cheaper,
right?
Okay, so currently they're being offered $120, $120 to go to Ulster County or to Orange County to dump the fee. So Joe Perillo, legislator from District 7, says, well, we have a garbage flow law, okay? And we'll start fining you if you dump your garbage somewhere else. Which, they were like, well, we can't survive like this.
Right.
So what's happening...
You're choking us off.
So now what's happening is companies are coming from Ulster County, from Pennsylvania, from Orange County, without a permit, and they're coming into our county, undercutting our small businessmen who live here, pay taxes here, pay payroll taxes here, buy diesel here, all that fun stuff.
They're picking up garbage here and dumping it in Ulster or Orange,
Correct.
Where they come from.
And now it's hurting the small businessmen here. So instead of saying, hey, we're going to find out who's doing this and go after them.
Because they don't have the ability to do that.
They don't have a permit here.
Right.
They then turn around and say, if you do that, we're going to enforce the law, okay? And so it's $500 the first time.
If Thompson Sanitation were to go and dump
Correct.
elsewhere, and you talk about a community-minded company.
Correct.
Very fortunate to have Paul Walsh and his family that they give back a lot to the community. They don't ask for anything special.
Well, as a matter of fact, they're investors in the partnership. You can go on their website and look at it.
There you go.
Right? So, you know how my mind works. So I'm sitting there listening to Joe say this, and I'm saying to myself, well, why are we going after our companies?
Right.
Why aren't we trying to stop the people who are coming in and underbidding our companies?
Makes sense.
Right? But that's not, they went a step further. They went and Joe does an interview with Mid-Hudson News, and one of the lines he says, and I have it right here.
Okay.
He says, Perillo says, we were forced to raise rates because of our rising exportation costs. And while I agree with that on the surface, They raised it by 16.5 on MSW. Just so we're clear, MSW is municipal solid waste.
That's your household garbage.
Correct. Then there's C&D. Okay.
It's construction and demolition.
Correct. They raised that by $30 a ton, and that's 30% or 30,000 tons a year that we collect. They upped it by $30.
Well, that's because they're going to need to figure that out, because soon some of the places that are a alternative to Seneca Meadows won't take C&D.
Correct. So then...
Covanta will, by the way.
Yeah, correct. And then there are two other forms of garbage. There's cardboard tonnage, okay? And then there's SSR.
Yep.
Do you know what SSR is, Mike?
Sure. That's single stream recycling.
That's funny that you knew that, Mike.
Well, I mean, I was the county attorney, so we had to deal with that all the time.
Well, that's funny because there was a county legislator that said...
the legislators all know it because they deal with it all the time.
Nadia Reich, the chairman of the legislature, actually said to Scott Mace, what is SSR?
What?
So here you are, environmentalists.
Yeah.
Okay. Here you are, the sitting chair, and you've been a legislator for 8 years before that. We talked about
and
garbage.
a town supervisor before that.
Yeah, ad nauseum, we discussed this.
Right.
And you're asking the question, what is SSR? Okay. I can't make this stuff up.
Wow.
So I went and got the list of all the garbage that's been dumped in this county from the first of the year till 3/15. Okay. So that's March 15th, the Ides of March, right?
Beware the Ides of March.
Okay, total dumped in this county, so we're clear, was 6,139 tons, okay?
6,000 tons, that's from January 1 to March 15?
Correct.
So almost the first quarter.
Correct.
And 100,000 tons is what we figure on doing annually.
Correct. Now, keep in mind, there's no C&D in here.
So there should be 20. Okay. Right.
Okay,
There's no C&D in
There's
it.
no C&D in here. You
Right.
have to remember that. Okay? And then you have to remember this huge spike we have 4 months out of the year.
Right.
All right? Monster
Right,
spikes.
right.
Okay? Thompson Sanitation, without any C&D, did 3,252. So they're doing
50%. Almost.
a little bit more than 50% of, and keep in mind, of the people who are listed on here, and there are 20 some odd companies, they are the only commercial company that does SSR. No other commercial company did SSR.
Right.
Okay?
Because it's not profitable.
So they're being a good steward of the environment. They're doing the right thing. They're doing what's within their permit. And all they're asking for is to be brought back down to the $11.
That's it.
That's all they're asking for.
We'll pay the extra cost that the county has, but the county shouldn't be profiting additionally on our back. That's what they're saying.
And the answer to that is, we're going to put you in jail if you do that.
Yeah.
If you leave the county to dump your garbage, we're going to put you in jail.
Remarkable.
My question is, one, I can't believe how short-sighted they are on this issue. Two, I wish they would really clean up how they handle garbage in this county. And three, where's the partnership fighting for the small businessmen in this county who are currently here? Is your job just to bring people in? Because you're not doing a good job on that
either.
Okay?
Right.
Or is your job is to protect the people who are already here?
Well, you would think that, as you and I have talked about, you grew up with a family that owned a business.
Correct.
I grew up with a family that owned a business. And my father and your father, both who were natives of the same part of the Bronx, used to say, very simple business rule: it's a lot cheaper to keep a customer than to get a new one.
Correct.
I remember my dad saying that to myself and my brothers in their business all the time. And so, since we're not doing a very good job of attracting new businesses,
Correct.
and we're not doing a very good job of keeping the existing businesses, as we see by Pepsi, for whatever reason, after putting a lot of money into developing that plant and buying more property, or leaving. Formaggio, as I've said before, it's no secret, they're fueling the trucks. They're leaving because they simply can't meet their needs. So the partnership's not doing a very good job in keeping what we have, and they're not doing a very good job of bringing in new. And now here's a whole nother part of the trash issue
so
that we've going to have potential problems.
Since I've left office,
right,
we have reduced our workforce by 5%.
Yep.
We have doubled the unemployment rate.
Mm-hmm.
This is almost unbelievable to me. We have doubled our electricity rates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's what people are paying now. Okay?
Right.
And now we're about to come head on with a trash issue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, as a small businessman or a big businessman,
mm-hmm.
if you have high electricity rates, don't have a workforce, and you can't get your trash picked up,
you're not coming here.
You're not coming here.
Right. And, you know, people will say, well, you know, that's just what happened because, you know, if Rob was still here, these things would happen because we had no control over this.
That's a lie.
The answer is, folks, you always have a certain amount of input, if not absolute control, and to recognize the problem and to be working on it. You watch the meetings. I watch some of them. We don't even see these as real issues.
I think this is just people showing up on Thursdays,
mm-hmm.
collecting their paycheck every 2 weeks, I believe it is,
and their health insurance.
And their health insurance. Okay, mm-hmm. I believe only one legislator turns down their health insurance, mm-hmm. just so we're clear. So they're all getting their health insurance. Okay, and
he's retired and he's getting it anyway.
Correct. And the workforce has fallen apart. Mm-hmm. Electricity rates have gone through the air. Mm-hmm. We are not environmentally sound in how we're handling our garbage today. Mm-hmm. And we're looking to put our operators of the largest garbage company, garbage hauler in the county, in jail or fine them.
Right.
For not being able to stop people from coming into our county and undercutting their accounts.
It's remarkable. So either Jacob is working on his calisthenics, or once again we've come to the end of another hour. And when we met and talked about today's show, I thought, okay, this will be the week where we'll run out of stuff. And I'm not sure if Jacob is landing airplanes or if he's just trying to get us to wrap. But again, folks, if there are views that differ from ours, then, or you want to be heard on this, give us a call, leave us a comment, and we'll be happy to have you on, and you can express a contrary view. Miss Reich is welcome in that seat right next to you.
Come on down.
She can come on down. She can talk. Maybe we'll get one of the legislators. Maybe we'll be able to get maybe some of the commissioners that can come down and talk about how we deal with how we're dealing with some of these issues.
I just do want to point out the legislator from District 9, Terry Bernardo. She voted against the increase.
Right.
To $16.50 and $30.
Well, maybe we can get Terry here, and she can maybe talk about some of the discussions that go on and bring us up to speed.
Sure.
And also, as we get closer to the summer, we want to bring on some of the town supervisors to talk about the plans for the summers and the different activities for children. We'll get them in. We know it's an election year, so we're not bringing them in for politics. We want to know, what is happening, what they are doing. So, folks, listen to us on Spotify. You watch us on YouTube. If you watch us on YouTube, very important. You really help yourselves out because you help this platform improve if you are sure to
smash
that like button. And when you listen to us on Spotify, that's Ion Sullivan on Spotify. The shows are all there. They're archived. If you're late to joining, this is our 18th show. Jacob was telling us before we got started. There are 17 others that are in the can.
Is that his name? Because I call him Producer Guy.
He's Producer Guy. Producer Guy is good, but he also goes by Jacob occasionally.
Okay.
So and he's been flying solo, and I want to tell you, he's doing a great job. He is doing an amazing job with the sound quality here. It's terrific. But you want to be sure to subscribe, because once we get to 1,000 subscribers, folks, we become interactive. We can become live streaming. And this becomes the platform that a real exchange of ideas will happen without somebody knocking you off the site, because that's not going to happen. Leave us a comment. Tell us that you think that both Rob and I are full of it, and that it's just political vendettas, because trust me, folks, I have no political vendetta, and I know that Rob does not either. You may not agree with us. That's why leave us a comment and let us know what the comment is. You want to drop us an email, ionsullivan@gmail.com, and be sure to share the link. Let more people know what we are saying, and let more people participate by giving us feedback. So that's it. Once again, we've come to the end of another episode of Ion Sullivan. We want to wish everybody a very safe and happy and healthy Passover and a very happy Easter. Don't eat too much chocolate, because then you'll need more time on the treadmill. Rob, any last-minute comments?
No, I think that people need to get involved in this garbage issue. I talked about it for 4 years now, and it is becoming a major issue, and it's going to stop the growth of this county.
And I don't really care politically where you come from, because it's going to be a financial disaster for the county when the prices increase by maybe 2.5 times what Correct. It cost the county to get rid of it. So now the county's prices increased by $11, and they increased you by $16 or $30. When the county's prices go up by $50 or $60, what's going to happen is in some of our rural areas, we're going to bring back burn barrels, because people are just not going to be able to afford that extra cost. So if it's a cost issue there, if it's a composting issue, I know my sister, she keeps her own composting pile. My brother and sister-in-law up in Albany, they create their own composting pile. If that's the issue, you're concerned about the environment and cutting down on stuff in the ground, take a stand for the composting. And if you're just concerned about highway safety, all these extra trucks burning diesel fuel and then doing the worst thing that can be done is putting it in the ground so that the methane gas burns off and pollutes our environment. You've got to get involved in this garbage issue no matter what direction you come. The garbage issue is the center hub of the wheel. Wherever you come from, financially, environmentally, it's there. Highway safety, it all adds to it. So, on behalf of the chairman, Rob Doherty, I am Mike McGuire, wishing you again a happy holiday season. We will be back next week with another edition of Ion Sullivan. Thanks, folks.